Diddy just got hit with $100 million default judgment. Now an ex-member of Danity Kane has filed yet another lawsuit. We got lawyer Christopher Melcher here to break out the latest. It's been a while, but we got a Diddygate update, and I'm so glad to have Mr. Christopher Melcher back, sir. How you doing?
Pretty good. Good to be here.
Look, we've been waiting for something to happen here. This still isn't like, the big reveal as to what happened after these raids, but two new interesting updates that we wanted to keep you guys privy of. One we brought about last night on our live, and I had so many questions I want to bring Mr. Melcher here to explain how did this happen? How did Diddy's lawyer miss this case? And now the judge just deemed he's guilty, and now he must pay $10 million a month. This one's wild. There's now also another lawsuit that came in that I'm going to give you an update as well. But first, let's start with the earlier one. So, Christopher, this accuser is actually an inmate in prison. This guy, Derek, I guess got a law degree or something, or some sort of law expertise to be able to file this himself from prison. He's got a lot of bad charges, apparently, so Diddy's team says. But he made an allegation that Diddy did some inappropriate, I got to be careful of the words, inappropriate actions, SA stuff to him while they were with some other women at a party. He apparently served it to Diddy. Diddy never responded. And now Diddy got a judgment for $100 million. Now, other people are out there reporting, saying that this guy claims in August, Combs offered him $2 million settlement to dismiss it, but he declined and said he'd proceed. Combs allegedly responded, "You know how we get down." And he said, "I disagree with how you get down." So I go straight to you, Christopher. How does one miss a lawsuit like this? Does this, if it went this far, does that mean it clearly must have gotten served? Could the judge have just missed that? What are your responses to this?
Sure. So let me just talk, just generally speaking, how this process works. And it's important, because we're evaluating these stories all the time, like this other lawsuit, and that we're going to talk about. And it's very easy to sue somebody in the United States. You don't need permission of the court. You basically need, a computer, and you type out a complaint. And so literally anyone with a keyboard can sue somebody, and you don't need a lawyer to do it. You don't need a law degree or anything like that. You just need to write out this complaint saying somebody caused me harm and I'm suing them, and, attach the right forms and file it with the court. And the court has to receive that as long as it's in proper form. They don't vet it for the merits and saying, okay, here's a lawsuit by this guy against Diddy, and boom, here's a case number. And then the plaintiff, this gentleman here, needs to serve it. And so he can't serve it personally. The plaintiff needs to have somebody else who's over 18, who's not part of the case, serve it. Now, it doesn't have to be personally served. That's what a lot of people think is the process server kind of jumping out of the bushes, handing it to Diddy. That's one way. But when you're an out-of-state defendant, like this guy in jail or prison is in Michigan, he is suing Diddy, who's an out-of-state defendant. He can do it by certified mail, and it's called a long-arm statute. So Michigan law, like many statutes, allow it to be served, the civil complaint served by certified mail to Diddy's house. So it could be in California or Florida. And here's, okay, fine, a certified mail going. So this prisoner guy would need to have somebody on the outside send that by certified mail. They have to have a return receipt. There's in the U.S., a little green card at the back of it.
So no picture evidence that they signed or anything like that.
Exactly. So it's the postal carrier who would bring it to Diddy's house, and there's a little green card and somebody would sign for it.
But does the post, sorry to interrupt, but does the postal guy have to sign or check ID? Like when you're served like that to verify, or he's just like, is this Diddy? And the guy says, I'm Diddy. They can sign it, and that's how they can get away with it?
It's not even that formal, because the postal carrier is not actually doing the service in this situation. It's whoever this prisoner guy enlisted to put it in the envelope and send it through certified mail, return receipt requested, is actually the process server in this instance. The postal carrier is just the one who's handing it to whoever is there collecting mail for Diddy, and whoever that person is going to sign the back of the card, and that little green card then gets mailed back to this person that the prisoner asked to accomplish.
Got it, that it was
service.
Delivered.
And now now that person, the supposed process server, will just fill out what's called a proof of service saying, on this date and time, I deposited in the U.S. mail by certified mail, return receipt requested to Diddy's home address, this complaint, and I got back this card, and there's some kind of signature on it, and therefore it's served. And so that's probably what happened. I don't have the papers, but that's my surmise. That's what happened. And then Diddy didn't respond in the 30 days or whatever that he had, probably because he didn't ever see it. And then a notice has to get mailed out, typically by the clerk, to Diddy's house saying, hey, you were served with a lawsuit and you didn't respond, and we're going to take a default judgment on this date if you don't respond. So there's no response to that either. So now there's this virtual court appearance in this Michigan court. The guy's appearing by Zoom from his prison and saying, hey, this was served, no response. I was injured. I want $100 million. And the judge is like, okay, well, there's no opposition to this, so I'm going to grant your request for $100 million and order Diddy to pay $10 million a month starting in October. So
Insane.
10 installments.
Is there a version of this where, because Diddy's got so many lawsuits, like there's a theory, I know John Witherspoon was telling, we were talking about this, but like just drowning him in lawsuits and having that sort of really hurt him was, I imagine, a process, right? Where he's got to constantly pay for these, but there might be a point where he has so many lawsuits, he could have just lost track of that one. I mean, is that a possibility here?
It is. And I've witnessed that myself with other clients. They kind of get overwhelmed or they're not paying attention to stuff. Things are piling up. Maybe, Diddy's got several homes, as we saw, in these raids. So Diddy may not be in either home, and there may be a caretaker or manager there who's collecting the mail and signing these cards and stuff like that. And it's just sitting on some, counter or in some box waiting for somebody to open it. And so that it could be as innocent as that, but that's not service. It has to be delivered and signed by Diddy. And so what'll happen is that Diddy's lawyer now has to go into this Michigan court, make a motion to set aside the judgment based on lack of service. We'll say, hey, Diddy didn't sign this. It's not my signature. So Diddy will have to do a declaration saying, I didn't get this thing, and probably have to explain who might have signed it. And even if Diddy knew about it, that's not enough. So some people might think, well, hey, if he knew about it, no. This is a very strict statutory procedure. That has to be handed to him by the mail carrier, and Diddy has to sign for it for this level of service to occur. So he'll get out of it. My guess is through that denial. I'm a little surprised that this Michigan judge didn't put some more scrutiny on it. Not to say, look, when you look at the prisoner's history there, it's so graphic we can't even talk about it.
Yeah, really bad charges against this guy.
Multiple offenses against women that he pleaded no contest to, so essentially admitted. And the guy's sitting in a prison cell. Also, he has a history of suing. There's 30 other lawsuits that this guy's sent. So I understand from the judge's perspective, it's like, hey, I've been presented a proof of service. I have this little green card here that says it was signed by somebody. They're saying it's Diddy, and you're claiming, sir, all these things happened. So since Diddy didn't respond, $100 million, I think that's ridiculous to assume that this person's telling the truth, or really that anybody's telling the truth without some kind of scrutiny on this, to saying, like, how do I know this is Diddy's signature? Something. Come on, ask some questions.
Yeah.
So my guess is it'll get overturned, but Diddy's it's his burden. If he doesn't do that, this guy literally can start collecting $10 million a month and start enforcing it against his homes and bank accounts starting in October.
And I imagine the feds, if they're trying to prepare a case against him, that's only good news for them, right? All these lawsuits that are coming in and more cost and stress is probably a part of that plan. Add to that now this latest one, really bad allegations in this one as well. Not as extreme as some of them, but still SA allegation and just monstrous behavior. The other really telling thing is that she was witness to a lot more actions that Diddy did against Cassie. Could that be used in this case? Could that be part of the reason maybe she even filed this? So there's more on the record reactions and clear witnesses to things Cassie suffered. What are your thoughts?
Well, sure. So again, it's just a complaint, and so it's and we don't know, we don't know who's
If it's
telling the
true,
truth.
right.
Did he do this or not? So I think that's important to note because again, there's a lot of people have come out of the woodwork. Now maybe she's completely telling the truth, and if so, Diddy should be accountable for what she's alleging happened. It definitely goes on the pile, and there's a lot of pressure. Now, in terms of the criminal case, the typical maneuver is not necessarily just to put pressure on the key defendant, Diddy, in this case, if charges were filed. And again, I got to note, no charges have been filed against Diddy. I mean, we saw the raids, and we're kind of thinking, okay, well, if they're going to do those raids, they came out with some computers and other items from this guy's house, but that's a long time ago. Why has no criminal case been filed or indictment? So he's still uncharged. But if they are going to go to that level and proceed, they're typically going to put the most pressure on the assistants. And we saw that with the Matthew Perry case. It's like there's some key defendants, but how do they crack the case? They take their time and they apply maximum pressure to the low-level people who can flip on the real targets of the investigation. So I guess, that's what's happening, and what's taking time is behind the scenes that they're trying to get people to cooperate and also trying to get witnesses. So if this individual here that's sued recently has some information, definitely, that's the government would want to be interviewing her to see what information can be developed for a criminal case too.
So where do you think the next steps are? I'm glad, well said. Obviously, a lot of us just believe this now, given what we've seen him do to Cassie, right? Diddy's not done himself any favors. And so I know a lot of people, he's just guilty to the court of public opinion. But from a court case, you're right, he hasn't actually been officially convicted and charged of things yet. These are all motions. What do you think, though, the next steps are? And do you think any of these are aligned or have been talking to the feds as they're prepping their final case? What are your final thoughts of things to come?
Yeah, the civil suits definitely are something he has to pay attention to, but this guy's got money and he can deal with those. The real threat, the existential threat to him is the criminal investigation. So that's the thing that would destroy him if that happened potentially. So that's, again, and the feds can take their time. There's certainly some statutes of limitations or time limits to bring criminal charges. But as long as they're within that time, they can be slow and steady and develop the evidence. So eventually there's got to be a conclusion to this. I would expect it, because you don't just go and raid two houses publicly like that with all that attention and all this talk and not bring charges, or at least to come forward and say, hey, we're not bringing charges and here's the reason. So I got to imagine, give them a couple more months. But at that point, it's like, hey, you're either going to flip people and get them to cooperate or not. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll see some kind of resolution to this thing, at least as to the criminal investigation.
So still waiting. Do you think it's going to happen soon, or could this still take a year or two if they really take their time? I guess it's up to them.
It can take time. I think what's complex about it is that these allegations, like with the Cassie thing, which definitely we saw for ourselves, the horrific treatment of her, happened a long time ago. And in criminal, statute of limitations time, there's usually a period of years that you have to bring criminal charges. So if they're going to do this RICO thing, which we're seeing a lot of times, is the government will say, hey, there's this criminal organization basically that somebody is operating, and there's a whole bunch of crimes that have happened that they're trying to piece together to show this criminal enterprise. They can rely on activity that happened that can no longer be prosecuted because it's too old, too far away in time. So they're going to have to put together those predicate acts and to make sure that they have this to stick. It's a very complex prosecution, so I would imagine that's going to take time. Because things like the prisoner lawsuit, he says this happened 30 years ago. So we have a lot of people who are claiming things happened a long time ago, and that creates a problem for the prosecutor.
Well, lots more to come, it seems. We will be here for you, so make sure you don't miss the news. Hit the button for all alerts. Smash that like button. Hit the bell and alerts Leave a comment for engagement, and also make sure you support Christopher Melcher over on Twitter, CA_divorce, to get all your updates. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for filling us in, educating on this. Diddy's in trouble, clearly. What do you think? Do you believe this stuff? Are you waiting still? Are you getting fed up? I want to hear your thoughts down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet.